Hello, welcome to Write in Gavin Palmer YouTube channel, and today I have written a script to make use of OpenAI and LangChain to parse through a large PDF and allow me to ask questions. And I will look at recent bills for the United States federal government. And so that's what I'm going to do. I have a link in the description to my Hero LFG YouTube channel where I walk through the source code. And it's very basic, and this tech should get better, and we should get access to better models as time goes on. So I'm just going to start going through these bills now. Okay, so this first bill is the Restrict Act, and I should note I'm using old technology right now. I think I'm using the 3.5 model, the GPT 3.5 model. I may be wrong about that, but I know I'm not using the GPT-4 model because I don't have access to that one yet. And if I were going to do this different, instead of just passing the PDF with the bill, I would also pass in PDFs with research related to the bill so that we could get better answers. So that's the caveat, but we're just exploring some of the answers. So in the Restrict bill, I asked, what are the main goals of this bill? The main goals of this bill are to authorize the Secretary of Commerce to review and prohibit certain transactions between persons in the United States and foreign adversaries, and to protect the security and resilience of the critical infrastructure and digital economy of the United States, as well as to prevent interference in or alteration of the results of federal elections. So then I asked, what are the potential unintended consequences of this bill? And I got the response, this bill does not appear to have any potential unintended consequences. And so that's an answer that I don't really trust, because there are always trade-offs and unintended consequences. And so the bill itself did not contain information about the risks of enacting the bill. And that's where other kinds of PDFs need to be used to provide help provide an analysis. This also tells you about the quality of the bill itself, perhaps, or the quality of this large language model. I then asked, identify how this legislation might positively impact people. Whoops. So this legislation could help protect the security and resilience of the critical infrastructure and digital economy of the United States, as well as help protect against interference in or alteration of the result of a federal election. It could also help protect against coercive or criminal activities by a foreign adversary that are designed to undermine democratic processes and institutions or steer policy and regulatory decisions in favor of the strategic objectives of a foreign adversary to the detriment of national security. So you get the idea. I'm going to go through more of these. So the next bill is an assault weapons ban bill. The main goal of this bill, to regulate assault weapons and to ensure that the right to keep and bear arms is not unlimited. And when asked what are the potential unintended consequences, the large language model said, I don't know. So like I said, as the tech gets better, it should be able to tell you about this, because there are always unintended consequences. Okay, and this question I think had a hallucination. I actually went to the PDF. And that's the thing, is these things can provide answers that are inaccurate and they aren't trustworthy, which I like, because humans aren't trustworthy. And we should always be a little skeptical of the information that we're reading and the motives of those who are providing the information. So when asked to identify how this legislation might positively impact people, it said this legislation could positively impact people by regulating assault weapons and ensuring that the right to keep and bear arms is not unlimited. It could also provide funding for higher education under Title IX of the Higher Education Act of 1965. So I don't think it actually provides funding. This mention of Title IX had something to do with who would not be impacted by this law, and it pointed at, I think, security people within the universities and college campuses who have funding from Title IX, which is interesting. And then I think this tech could help us once it is more advanced. But I'm not very impressed, honestly, with the current tech, and I can't wait to update the script to point at GPT-4 instead of GPT 3.5. I'm going to just go through some of the rest of these very quickly. The next one was the goal of a bill to promote freedom, fairness, and economic opportunity by repealing the income tax and other taxes, abolishing the Internal Revenue Service, and enacting a national sales tax. And then it went through and it seemed to hallucinate some on the unintended consequences. Like I said, we would need to feed more data into the model. Identify how this legislation might positively impact people. So it could promote freedom, fairness, economic opportunity, savings and investment, economic growth, increased standard of living, increased investment, enhanced productivity and international competitiveness, reduced administrative burdens on taxpayers, improved upward social mobility and respect for the privacy interests and civil rights of taxpayers. The next bill was the bill proposes an amendment to the Constitution of the United States to limit the number of terms that a member of Congress may serve. And I thought it had interesting responses on this one. It said it does not address any unintended consequences. This gives you a look at how much these representatives are thinking about the unintended consequences of their bill. The bill itself does not mention the unintended consequences, and therefore those who read the bill do not become aware of the unintended consequences. And I think this is important. This bill proposes an amendment to the Constitution of the United States to limit the number of terms. It does not address any potential unintended consequences. I asked, identify how this legislation might positively impact people. It could lead to more opportunities for people to get involved in the legislative process. That sounds about right. And then identify how this legislation might negatively impact people. This could limit the number of terms that a member of Congress may serve, which could negatively impact people who have been in Congress for a long time and would like to continue serving. It could also limit the amount of experience and expertise in Congress, which could negatively impact the quality of legislation. That seemed like a valid concern. So I could see that was an example where you can actually see some trade-offs. In this one, the main goal was to ensure election integrity and security by establishing consistent photo identification requirements for voting in elections for federal office. And if you know me, you can you know that they're not pointing at root cause problems of ballot access and money in politics, for example. They're pointing at just being able to vote on the candidates who have been, pre-selected by a corrupt system. That's my bias. That's my view. So the main goals of this bill are to ensure election integrity and security by establishing consistent photo identification. It is not possible to answer the question about unintended consequences, but I think the prompt below does a better job. This legislation would require citizens to show a form of identification in order to vote, which would help protect against potential interference, abuse, and fraud. It could also help standardize state and local governments' administration of federal elections. Additionally, it could help ensure that any eligible citizens are voting in elections, that only eligible citizens are voting. And then how could it negatively impact people? The legislation could negatively impact people who are unable to pay the costs associated with obtaining a valid photo identification or who are otherwise unable to obtain a valid photo identification after making reasonable efforts. The next bill was prevent and prosecute white supremacy-inspired hate crime and conspiracy to commit white supremacy-inspired hate crime. And to amend Title 18 United States Code to expand the scope of hate crimes. And it admits to needing more research in order to predict the potential unintended consequences of this bill, but the next prompt is even better. How would it negatively impact people? So how would it positively impact people? The legislation could help prevent and prosecute white supremacy-inspired hate crime and expand the scope of hate crimes. This could help protect people from hate-motivated violence and create a more equitable society. And then identify this legislation, how this legislation might negatively impact people. Let's see. Looks like my photo is up at the top, but this legislation could negatively impact people by limiting their freedom of speech if they are publishing material that is considered to be white supremacy inspired. It could also lead to people being prosecuted for hate crimes even if they did not intend to commit a crime. So yeah, this seems like a huge negative impact, because there's a question of who enforces it and what is the standard? How do you know when it's a hate crime? It's quite subjective. So there you go. This is an example of how the technology could be used in the future to help everyone be more informed about the quality of the bills. For example, do the bills identify the trade-offs and risks in the bill, and the quality of the candidates creating bills? Like, are they, like, for example, whoever created this last bill, it seems they aren't, they lack the intelligence of the large language model, which is like 3.5. And these things are going to get better. Like, the large language models are going to be more intelligent, and already are. Right? I would say this large language model is more intelligent about identifying the negative impacts of a bill. It's more intelligent than the author of this previous bill, and is also, so it's already more intelligent than some of our representatives, and will be more intelligent than even more of our representatives. And so it would be nice if our bills minimize the unintended consequences, minimize the negative impact to people. We want our bills to have the best impact for all people, and like the least impact in causing harm. The most good and the least harm. That's what we want from our bills. So, some people just aren't as intelligent as others, and these large language models can help, and they are more intelligent than many people already, and they will continue to become more intelligent. And what we have here is, like, we have artificial general intelligence that is already more intelligent than many of the humans that are in government and putting bills out for vote. So let me know what you think. If you're more interested in the tech side of things, there's a link in the description to my other YouTube channel where I go over the code itself and get more technical. So I hope you have a good one. Bye-bye.